poppin', everybody? Hope you're having a super blessed day. And this is part 2 of the great conversation that me and Steven over at Fanatic Perspective had about not only my terrible Quinn Ewers take. If you haven't seen that first video, go click right there. I had a bad take. We ended up having a great conversation about that. But this is part 2 of the conversation where we talk about both USC and Texas football. I know we're not supposed to be fans. We're not supposed to be talking to each other, but we have a really good talk about the future of both of our programs. So if you want to see that, keep on watching. But there is a part 3 of this video. There's a part 3 of our conversation. So if you want to see that tomorrow, get this video to 300 likes within the first 24 hours, and that part 3 will be coming out tomorrow. Also, you already know the drill. Go subscribe to my guy Steven over at Fanatic Perspective. Be sure to hit that subscribe button for myself if you haven't already. Be sure to leave this video a like. Let's jump straight into this conversation that we had. 3, 2, 1. All right, so we got the whole Quinn Ewers situation wrapped up. Now, even though Texas and USC, we're not supposed to be fans, I do see what y'all have been doing, and I want to hear from an actual Texas fan, and you seem very reasonable with your takes. How has the last 12 to 18 months been as a Texas fan, and what realistically do you think that Texas can do in the next 3 seasons?
So the last 12 to 18 months, I mean, it's been, this whole yo-yo thing with Sharpe coming on board, all gas, no brakes. Yeah. And, we come out and we start, Arkansas aside, we start 4-1. And then we've run into this chaotic situation where our team just had a mental breakdown, man. We were talking about the mental earlier, and that's what really hit us hard. Granted, talent-wise, we weren't where the rankings probably would have us. We weren't as strong in the trenches. We weren't a physical team. We weren't in the best condition shape, but we were leading a lot of ball games and dropping games, right? And so then Kansas happens, and all the trolls and people in the comments are gonna pull up on me, right? I get it too, SharpeSports. That are gonna say Kansas 5-7, right? But to recruit the way we've recruited, to have the continuity and the trust from the staff, we bring in a Brennan Marion who has been an unbelievable, coach and one of the rising brothers in the coaching community. I went to Howard University, so I grew up a Texas fan, blood wise, but HBCU wise, I did go to Howard, and Brennan Marion was our offensive coordinator there. We had one of the greatest upsets, if not the greatest upset, at least from a Vegas perspective, college football history over UNLV. And so that's that guy that coached Jordan Addison to win the Blitnikoff last year, who is with you now, and y'all beat us out for him. So congrats to the homie Jordan. But having that guy on our staff, coaching guys like Xavier Worthy and Brennan Thompson and, Jai Hall and all these guys, it's exciting. Tashard Choice, I'm a Cowboys fan, so coaches, the relationships that are being built. And I think you've seen that in recruiting. Texas right now, I think he's like 2nd or 3rd, consensus wise.
Last I checked, they were the second best.
And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Arch Manning, right? When your team lands a Manning and knowing what that means, it's football royalty. The boost that's come of it. I know how you feel about your boy Jonte. He's one of them ones.
He cooks,
So regardless of regardless of some of the battles that we've lost, those are some of the big names and exciting things. I will say this: what's going to turn Texas around, especially as we start to transition into the SEC, is how we've recruited that offensive line. How we're starting to recruit in the trenches. We've had skill guys come to Texas. We've had quarterbacks, big name quarterbacks come here before, but we've had such a shortfall recruiting in our own state, recruiting nationally within the trenches. And so the emphasis by Kyle Flood, the emphasis by Bo Davis, Steve Sarkisian, this entire staff, I think they are preparing to have this team physically ready. That Arkansas game was a lesson last year, man. It really, really was. And it was an eye-opening lesson for a lot of fans because you're seeing that type of physicality on a weekly basis. We had to get those big bodies in here. Kyle Flood is a big fan of saying big humans, big human sports. So we needed to I think that's where our trajectory is headed. This year, to me, I've been saying it on my YouTube channel, Fanatic Perspective, This year is a journey. We are in a youth movement. I meant that on the video. I said that we are in a youth movement. We're going to be playing a lot of young guys. However, your question about next 2-3 years, I think we are setting up very nicely on the trajectory to be one of the most physical teams and have great scheme and great coaching with Steve Sarkisian.
Most definitely. I mean, to me, they're first and foremost, for Texas to have this recruiting class directly after what Texas A&M did last year shows the step that they have. For Texas A&M to literally have the greatest recruiting class ever last year, and then for Texas to come right behind them and not only recruit as well as they have, but recruit in state. I like every time I watch a Texas recruit, I say the same thing. Texas will. It's a little extreme, but they will live and die by how well they recruit in state. Texas is the deepest state. You can look at Florida, you can look at California, you can look at Georgia. Texas is always will be the deepest state when it comes to your talent pool, but that also comes with a lot of competition. Obviously, you got Texas A&M, you got TCU, you got 1,000 schools that are in Texas. But for Texas to go have this recruiting class right after what Texas A&M did, I think it shows, one, that Texas is sexy again to college to recruits. It's cool to be a Texas Longhorn. Like, that burnt orange means something now, whereas I felt like before it was the same thing with USC. Like, that the history wasn't translating the same way to the kids. I think that most kids don't really care about the history, but it's cool to be a Longhorn again. And you're starting to see these players coming in, and like you said, that the big boys, yeah, especially moving to the SEC, you're gonna have to have those guys. But when you're able just to get the pieces all around in Texas, and then be able to pull from the rest of the states when you need to, which they've shown that they can this year, it does have a lot of optimism for Texas.
Sharpe, let me ask you this, man, because I feel like there are a lot of parallels between our football teams. Let's be honest, right? Especially since that legendary game, what was that, 17 years ago? Crazy.
06, yeah.
Yeah, 16, 17 years ago. So a lot of kids, Reggie Bush, Matt Leinart, like, I'm not even talking about going way back to, like, Marcus Allen and stuff like that. We're talking about, like, recent Pete Carroll, USC.
I miss Pete Carroll.
Y'all were like Bama, right? Like, y'all were one of them ones. And so from your standpoint, same thing for you, right? Like, Lincoln Riley on board. You're going to the Big Ten. You got Caleb Williams, Malachi Nelson. Hopefully you hang on to him. What's your take there from a USC perspective? Because as a college football fan, I want to see these teams I grew up with, bro, be good.
Yes, like I feel like college football is better when, yes, you want to see your Cincinnatis come out of nowhere every now and again, but for the most part, when the blue bloods are up, that's where it is. To me, the only difference between Texas and USC is just the Pac-12. It, like, when it goes, like, when you look at the Power 5, it's like the ACC and then the Pac-12 at the bottom. It's like it just doesn't hold that way, which is why I'm so happy that not only did we move to the Big Ten quick.
Yeah.
Lincoln
I already
Riley,
had your stuff together when they announced
it. we were just like shoot, like we already had a foot out the door. We were just like, oh, we have to play this season here? I guess we'll do that. But Lincoln Riley pretty much took the core of Oklahoma's recruiting class and just said, thank you. I mean, we got Malachi Nelson, Rayleigh Brown, Makai Lemon. There was another kid, actually, it's one of Malachi's teammates. He's another 4-star receiver. I think he's staying at Oklahoma, but we pretty much took the heart, at least skill position wise, of Oklahoma's recruiting class when Lincoln Riley came over. I think just how USC football has been so frustrating because we have the pieces with like how we run our air raid offense. We have the pieces, but we were just being so predictable. And I think that Lincoln Riley's going to mix up the offense enough where we still can't air the ball out where we need to, but you can't be like, I think there was a stat where it said like 75 or 80% of USC's first downs were pass plays. That's too predictable. You have to mix it up. When you're constantly putting yourself in third, like obvious passing downs and third downs, it really just pigeonholes what you can even do as an offense, because the defense can pretty much just eliminate half the playbook knowing what you can do. So I think with the pieces that we have, with Lincoln Riley, like having another face of the team coach, I think that all these things are going to be great for USC. I still, where Texas has to worry about other Texas schools taking the recruits, California has to worry about the rest of the country taking California players. Like there's no, Stanford's not going to be taking no big time players.
That's a good point. Yeah.
It's like, CJ Stroud. You went to Ohio State. Bryce Young. You went to. DJ Wingle. You're all going to other places. So there's that. But to me, the number one thing, and it's been the same thing with USC, it's gonna be the discipline. I really do feel like with USC, the number one thing is always just like, it's just lapses in judgment. You'll see we'll be playing solid defense, and then a safety just was paying no attention, and we just get bombed on a 3rd and 20. We had them, and then all of a sudden the drives are being extended, drop passes, just not blocking the right gaps in the run game. I think that Lincoln Riley will bring that focus. Also with Caleb Williams coming over, being a guy who's like, hey, like I'm not here to lose. Like I'm here to.
He's bringing a lot of confidence.
I think having those two is going to really help USC just get back into that, like to me, at least Pac-12 championship game. Utah is gonna be tough this year. We at least gotta get there. Like that's the minimum for me.
It's funny you say that too, because I remember watching USC a couple of years during the COVID year when you guys are, you have an opportunity to really steal a Pac-12 championship.
Yeah.
And you guys were so sloppy to start that football game. I'll never forget that. And I'm just like, what is Clay Helton doing? Like, but then I think about it and I'm like, I understand he probably maxed out as a coach for his situation. You needed a guy like a Lincoln Riley, one of those top guys to be at a top program. I get that. However, the disorganization from the admin to the I'm preaching to you right now today.
Just everywhere.
Dude, USC's been a mess.
I mean,
so no wonder you guys are not disciplined.
I mean, like literally, so I used to live, like before I moved to Texas, I lived literally 10 minutes away from USC. There's a lot of distractions. There is a lot of distractions at USC. I mean, you can pretty much do whatever. You're a rock star on campus. There's no other competition. Like UCLA's 30, 35, 40 minutes across the way. So you're not really mingling with them. It's like, I'm at USC, I'm a star. Whether we win or lose, I'm still gonna be the cool kid on campus. I'm still like it. I feel like for these past, I don't know, decade, kids were like, oh, we're USC. We're supposed to beat Arizona State. We're supposed to beat Colorado. We're supposed to just show up and just win these games. And then especially like the Utah games, where like Utah is a physical team, and USC, you just see them just crumble. It's like as soon as we got smacked in the mouth and we don't really have a comeback for it, or we start super slow and then we have to crawl our way back. I mean, literally for the past 5-10 years, USC has been, we play a cupcake team week 1, like most teams. We go 3-1, 4-1 the first couple games. We lose to a team we should have no business losing to. We like fall out of the top 25. We just try and claw our way back. We keep it. We like barely win a game against another team that we were supposed to just dominate, and then we end up beating like Utah when they were number 4, and it's like, and so USC's always like in the mix. But when you look at how they got to be in the mix, it's like you were a non-factor for the whole season, and then you just won a big game on the back half of the year, which bumped you to like number 20 on the top 25 or like 18, and it's like, oh, like USC still. It's like we have to put it together, which is what I was talking about with the discipline. It's like week in and week out, looking at every team the same. It doesn't matter who we are facing. It doesn't matter where we are going.
100%.
We have, like, even with the Pac-12 not being super strong, and then especially going to the Big Ten, we have to have our stuff together, because if we thought that Pac-12 played tough defense, wait until you go against Wisconsin, Nebraska, Ohio State, Michigan State, like that alone.
And throw
USC
weather
might
in
be
there.
Like the seventh best team in their own conference.
Yep.
When we go to the Big Ten, if we don't play our cards right, so that's where like the discipline's gonna like really. Also with those flights,
travel's gonna be crazy.
Discipline, like USC needs to be disciplined. Like we get, like watch us get a game versus Northwestern in August, September, like. All of a sudden, it's 10 degrees outside. We're like, wait.
Well, yeah. I mean, was like you mentioned Wisconsin or even Iowa, right? Like some of these places where you have to go out there and it's a different type of cold, right? It's not even like, oh, it's cold today. Like, no, it hurts. It hurts. That's that feel it in your bones type cold.
Yep.
Right. And so they're going to have to prepare for that. Whereas people are going to be looking forward to their trip coming to LA. To play when they get to play USC.
I was thinking about that. I was thinking that actually might be a real concern for some teams. Like you get to schedule an away game at USC and UCLA back-to-back weeks.
That feels like
in
a bowl
the middle
game.
of December. All of a sudden, like that could really turn the tide. Like say. Michigan and Ohio State are at the top again, or Michigan State. Like all of a sudden, when you're getting to play in 80-degree weather compared to 8-degree weather, that it brings up a lot. It's going to definitely be interesting just seeing what the new Big Ten and the new SEC are going to be looking like.
I want to add one thing to what you just said, and that's everything you just went over in your assessment of your program. Mm-hmm. If we remove the names and the conferences, you could apply that to Texas. You could apply that into, we rise up randomly against somebody, but we also drop a game we shouldn't drop, the distractions around the campus, all these things, culture, admin problems, XYZ, right? Lack of development. Now, that's actually been a real, real bad problem at Texas. I would say worse than USC. I mean, you guys just had Drake London and some other dudes get got, right? Yeah. But we haven't had a first-round pick since, in like 7 years. So it's tough on
Wasn't this like the first year where like a Texas player like didn't get drafted or something?
Actually, the second time in the last 5 years, but like before that, it hadn't happened.
Yeah.
And then now it's happened twice.
Like Texas is up there with like, they're in the top 5 of like the most players drafted ever. Mm-hmm. So it's like, it's really
we should be considered an NFL factory. And quite frankly, we haven't been. But to your point about consistency and discipline, it's all one and the same, right? I mean, that discipline is, I've talked about this on my channel, and I like numbers. So I'll say, hey, everybody one of the things about Bama is if your best is a 10, Bama's never going to dip below 8.
Yeah.
So if you show up on Saturday at 10, you have a chance to beat them, right?
Yeah.
But Texas would show up one Saturday, they show up at 4. Next Saturday, we show up at 6, and this team showed up at 9. The good teams never dip below a certain number because you have to factor in, hey, injuries could happen. Yeah. Hey, anything, from a standpoint of, we kind of got that adjustment wrong with this team. They threw us off, but we're always going to be prepared to play all 4 quarters and play hard. And there's no WTF moments or games, right? It's if we got beat like Baylor last year, Dave Aranda, I don't think Baylor played one game where I would say they played above an 8, but they stayed at 8.
That consistency,
consistency. So you had to beat Baylor.
Yeah, they weren't. Right? They were never going to beat themselves.
They were not going to beat themselves.
You had to beat them.
And teams like our teams, where we got guys that they're talented and all this type of stuff, but they're not locked in. becomes an issue. And I think that's where we have to get back to. You talked about distractions. Reggie Bush was hanging out with Kim K back in the day. Why wasn't he distracted?
Like when I say like, so where USC is, it's on Figueroa. You just go right down Figueroa. You will be passing the Staples Center, and then you go down, what is that? You go down La Brea, and then when you get to West Hollywood, that's where you really will get in trouble. And it's just like all of that's within, not including traffic, because LA traffic is terrible. But literally, you could be moving around within 25 minutes, and it's like, and then you're like getting mixy with like famous people like Kim K, like you said, and then all of a sudden you're buying into your own hype, and then you walk in like I remember one year we lost to Boston College, and I was like, all right, this season's a wrap. This season's a wrap. Let's go. Boston College. I think that was the year they had AJ Dillon, and I was just like, wrap it up. This season's over with.
They didn't want to hit that. They didn't want to hit that brother. That did they? Yeah. They didn't want to deal with AJ Dillon.
No, they did not.